Welcome back to Raw Uncut Music Interviews. I'm Tim Pendergrass, and this is a really cool one for me. It's B.J. Thomas, and I saw B.J. Thomas as a kid back in Michigan at the fair several years in a row, and just loved Raindrops, and I can't help believing, Hooked on a Feeling, and got a chance to interview him. And really cool thing he did is we were going to film part of the concert here at the Crazy Horse Saloon in Santa Ana, California, before it got tore down. And he said, and someone came up and said, hey, he'd like to meet you on his bus for a few minutes before the show. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe he wants to know what questions we're going to ask or whatever. So we go out there, and he just wanted to get to know us. It was me and another lady who was with us, and just sat and told us all about his career, wondered what we were doing. Just like, we were taken aback because it's like, wow, he really just wants to know who we are or something. When we're just, maybe he does that with all the interviewers, I don't know, but super, super nice guy. So then we filmed most of the concert to use that as B-roll in our edited piece. And then after the show, went out to the bus and interviewed him. And he sat down, couldn't be nicer, great stories, very humble, and always a great voice, B.J. Thomas.
Okay, first off, what do you think you're best known for?
Well, I think I'm probably best known for Raindrops, Keep Falling on My Head, the song out of Butch Cassidy. And although I've been very lucky, I've had lots of hit records, but the main song that I'm remembered for is Raindrops Keep Falling.
What is the one thing of your career, looking back, that you could say, yeah, I'm really glad that I accomplished that, or I got that pinnacle, or this? Is there one shining moment that?
Well, I guess, the one really shining moment, or one thing I'm very glad I got to do, did involve Raindrops, Keep Falling, and the fact that I'm glad I got to work with Burt Bacharach and Hal David. I mean, I think Burt Bacharach is like a modern day Beethoven. Hal David probably is the greatest lyricist, pop music lyricist, besides maybe Paul McCartney, that we've ever had in the business, and especially from this country. And it was a high point for me also, in the fact that it won the Academy Award. It won the Grammy for Record of the Year, and it was just a great thing to be involved with. And I was very lucky to get to do it, so it was a great thing for me to have.
Great. Want to tighten up just a little bit now?
Sure.
That'll just establish us. Yeah, right there is great. Somewhere like that. A little more talk space on my side. Cool. Now let's just go back a little bit. Who are your influences to be a singer, and why?
Well, my influences to sing were, originally my father. My dad loved country music, and he took us to see the Grand Ole Opry when they came through Houston years ago when I was just a kid. So he was probably my first influence. And vocally, of course, Elvis influenced all of us from that generation. But I was always more influenced by Bobby Bland, Jackie Wilson, Little Junior Parker, Little Milton. Even Little Richard to a certain extent. Was one of my idols when I was a kid. So my biggest influences, as far as my singing goes, would have to be the great, the black R&B singers from the 50s and 60s.
Great. Do you think, do you consider yourself your voice, or anything that you sing like somebody? Or have you gotten past that, where you're your own style?
I don't, I do have purposely tried not to sound like anyone. But when I first started, I was 15 years old when I first got my first band, so I copied everybody. And originally, I tried to copy Jackie Wilson and Bobby Bland and these guys. But and I think it was mainly an accident that I didn't do it. But I saw a number of friends of mine who were singers who would imitate the guys whose records they were singing and try to sound like them. And I noticed in a number of my friends, they would lose themselves. They got to where they sounded like a lot of people, but they didn't sound like themselves anymore. So I don't know if it was just an accident or I noticed that right off. But I copied all the guys I idolized, but I never tried to sound like them. I always tried to keep my sound for whatever it was worth.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do have it. There's no doubt about it. When you hear your voice.
As it turns out, I think that's one of the reasons I'm still around. Is I do, people who know me know what I sound like. When they hear me, they know it's me. I don't sound like a lot of other guys. And I noticed that when I first started, that some of my friends, they could sound like Wilson Pickett or a lot of different different people, but then they got to where they didn't sound like themselves. So I tried to make a conscious effort not to do that.
Yeah, great. The other night when we talked, you told me an interesting story about the recording of Raindrops and when you came and you had laryngitis. Could you just tell us about that?
Yeah, I was when I got the chance to do Raindrops. Actually, I've been with Scepter Records for about 3 years, and he was Burt Bacharach was producing all of Dionne Warwick's hits, and my personal manager at that time was Dionne's personal manager, and so we had always been politicking him to do a session on me or write a song for me. And he, by the way, didn't work with male vocalists. He had had some bad experiences with male vocalists, and he just did not work with them. You know, he worked with Dionne and Jackie DeShannon and certain female singers, and he wrote songs for female singers, but he didn't mess with male vocalists. Well, anyway, I was doing a tour of the Midwest. I was in right at the end of a 3-week tour, and Paul Cantor, my manager at that time, called me and said, you know, BJ, you're gonna sing one of Bert's songs in this Paul Newman movie. And of course I was thrilled. So I took a plane and flew in with my wife Gloria. And back in those days I was pretty rough on myself. I'd stay up 3 or 4 or 5 days at a time, and it was always a big party to me. It took me a while before I realized that it was a job and I had to keep myself in shape. But by the time I got out here, I could barely talk, and my throat was just killing me. So I went to the doctor. And he said, well, I don't want you to even speak for 2 weeks. If you have anything to say, just write it down on a piece of paper. And I said, gosh, Doc, you've got to do something to get me where I can sing, because I've got a song here in a Paul Newman movie. And at that time, I didn't know who Robert Redford was. I hadn't seen the few movies that he had made, and I wasn't aware of him. But I knew that Paul Newman was about the biggest out there. So he did give me some pills to shrink my vocal cords and things, and I did do the session. I remember I only could sing the song 4 or 5 times. By the time I'd sung it, we did it to the bicycle scene, and by the time I had finished singing it about 4 or 5 times, I was back in the shape I was when I started. I couldn't even talk. So Burt was he was pretty mad at me. He was furious, really. But one of the 20th Century Fox movie guys came up to me and said, BJ, that's really brilliant of you. You're trying to sound like Paul singing, aren't you? And I went, yes, sir, I am. So they thought I did pretty good. Anyway, it worked out good in the movies. But we did about 5 to 6 weeks later, we did re-record the song when my voice was back in shape for the single version that we had out. So there is 2 different versions: the movie version and the later version.
Great story. I wanted to get a couple of comments on a couple of your bigger songs, and then I'll lead into some live footage of, this will be kind of the greatest hits march here.
Okay.
But if you could just give me a small comment that I'll either put underneath it or whatever, or where the song came from. This was a #1 for me. Anything like that. I Just Can't Help Believing.
Well, I Just Can't Help Believing was written for me by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, and they later wrote Rock and Roll Lullaby for me. But I've always been proud of that song. It was one of my biggest hit records, and Elvis did it in one of his movies, and we had a kind of connection with my movie. I was one of the few singers that Elvis liked, and that probably was the first song of mine that he liked. So it's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, you said in concert the other night that Elvis said he sang it better. But he
Well,
got the gold record at
in the movie, he did it in the movie, and he said, I always liked this song. He said, I didn't like the way BJ sang it. And he was just kind of kidding, he was kind of always kidding around like that. So I don't think he meant it, but.
But you have the gold record at home, remember?
But I've got the gold record at home.
Did you know Elvis very well?
Well, when I lived in Memphis, he invited me to sing. He would ask me to sing at his parties. Like if he had a Christmas party or a Valentine's party, he would ask me to sing if I was in town. It was like a command performance. And so I did sing at a number of his parties. And I think possibly originally Elvis liked me because I had the second hit I had in 1966 was a song called Mama, a song that was written about my mother, and I guess it's legendary, how much Elvis loved his mother, and that probably was why he liked me to begin with. But I would always have to sing at his parties. If I was in town, I'd have to do Mama and do I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. And I remember the first party I sang for Elvis, I'm singing I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and it's got the big high thing on the end, and I hear someone singing harmony up over me. And I looked down, and it was Elvis. So, the guy had a tremendous range and was a fantastic singer. And a lot of people don't realize how good a vocalist he was.
That's a great story. Another song, "Hooked on a Feeling."
"Hooked on a Feeling" was one of was written for me by Mark James. It was a top 5 record for me, and really I think it should have been a #1 record, but it was a top 5 record. I think one of the Beatles beat me out on "Hooked on a Feeling," but we used a sitar on it. It was one of the major hits with the sitar, and still kind of brings back memories because we still use the sitar when we do it live.
Perfect. That's a great lead into that. "Somebody Done Somebody Wrong" song.
"Somebody Done Somebody Wrong" song was written for me by Chips Moman and Larry Butler. Chips produced a lot of my hits, and he did all the comeback hits on Elvis, "In the Ghetto" and "Suspicious Minds" and all that stuff. And Larry Butler did all the first 6 or 8 hit records on Kenny Rogers. But these two great producers got together and wrote that song, and it was I guess it's one of my favorites. It's a very easy song to sing. I think that's why people like me so much, is they feel like they can sing as good as I can, and they can sing right with me. But it was a #1 country song, #1 pop record, and it was the country song of the year for 1975.
Oh, great. "Most of All," which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, "Most of All" I recorded in Doraville, Georgia, with the Atlanta Rhythm Section before they became a hit band themselves. And Buddy Bowie produced it, and that Buddy Bowie and Robert Nix wrote "Most of All," and they were the 2 guys that wrote "Spooky" and "Stormy" for the Classics 4, and they wrote a lot of hit records. But I had a number of hits out of Georgia with those guys.
Oh, that's just great. Also, there's an interesting Dwayne Eddy story, I think, attached. I saw it in the liner notes of the Rhino package, your greatest hits is out.
Yeah.
About, that's on Rock and Roll Lullaby?
Yeah, Rock and Roll. I don't know if we did it. Yeah, we did it. I tried to do it, didn't I? Rock and Roll Lullaby was written by Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann, the same people that wrote "Just Can't Help Believing." When we did the song, we wanted to make it like an authentic kind of a concept single. It probably was one of the first of its kind, but we called the Beach Boys, and we had them lined up to sing on it. We had the Blossoms sang on it, and Darlene Love sang on it, and Dwayne Eddy played the second guitar lead. It was kind of interesting when he came to the studio to record on Rock and Roll Lullaby. He played all these modern licks, and so when he left the studio, we were talking. We were so disappointed that he didn't do his old twangy stuff. So we called him at the hotel and asked him to come back down. And when we said, man, could you play your old stuff? And he said, I thought y'all wanted me to be up to date. He said, sure, I'd love to. And then he went out and put his twangy lead on it. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I read in the notes that you had the Beach Boys lined up with Brian Wilson. You couldn't find him or something.
We flew out here. We had a session with John Sebastian. And he played on the song he wrote, and then we did a session with Carole King, where she played piano. And then before we came out, we had spoken with Brian Wilson on the telephone and played him the song over the telephone, and he loved it. And we said we wanted him to sing, so he said he would. And then when we got out here, we were out here 2 weeks recording, but we never could get in touch with him again. So we got 3 or 4 guys that had been on a lot of the Jan and Dean records, and they came in and imitated the Beach Boys. It sounds just like them, So I wish it had been them, but it sounds like them anyway.
Even your band live was pulling it off pretty good that night.
Yeah.
I don't know who was hitting that real high stuff.
That was my drummer. My drummer singing the high harmony.
Yeah, that was on. So I was like going, whoa,
yeah.
Where's that coming from? That was good. One more song, I just wondered how the theme to Growing Pains, how did that come about?
That was written by John Bettis and Stephen Dorff. Steve and I are both good friends with both those guys. But they were writing the song not necessarily for me, but after they had written a verse and a chorus, they called me on the phone and said, look, we're writing this song for this TV pilot, and so far it sounds just like a B.J. Thomas record. Would you be interested in doing it? Because, if you are, we're going to go ahead and really tailor it to you. If not, we're going to change it a little bit because it sounds so much like you. But I said, I'd love to do it. And anyway, we came out and did the song for the pilot, and it was a real surprise hit. At that moment in Alan Thicke's career, he was kind of down, and it just was a real unexpected success for him. The first night Growing Pains was on TV, it was the #1 show in New York City, and from there it just, it had a great run.
Yeah. we've done a lot of work with Alan Thicke.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, we even videotaped his wedding. We got
Oh,
used
you
him
did?
so many times that once his wedding came around, will you guys film my wedding?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was one of those. But yeah, he's a pretty funny guy too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And he's a good songwriter too. I'm surprised.
yeah, he's done a lot of.
I was surprised. Yeah, he's done a lot of theme songs. I was
Theme
surprised he
songs,
didn't
yeah.
write this one, but I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah. That's a good question. All these great songwriters have written a lot of great songs for you. Have you tried writing yourself? I know you have a couple songs I've seen around back up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've had a lot of great writers write for me, and I am recently, over the last say 5 or 6 years, beginning to write a lot of my own stuff, which I haven't gotten on record yet, but I hope to in the near future. You know, that's probably been the one person that I've been in awe of, that I'll get nervous around in my career. Not so much another star or a movie star or anybody like that, but a songwriter. To me, it's just I'm in awe of that whole situation. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if some guy didn't sit down and write a song. I don't know if whether he got drunk and wrote it, or whether he was sad and wrote it, or he was happy and wrote it. But I just really admire and respect and am in awe of songwriters. So I really have to give them the credit for my career. So many of my songs still stand up and people still like them. And it's because I think I've been as lucky as anybody. I've had the chance to work with some of the greatest songwriters of my time, with Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, Mark James, and Bacharach and David. So I've been very lucky in that respect. But I have started to write some of my own stuff, and hopefully within the next year or two with Warner Brothers, I'll have them on record.
great. In regards to that, like back then and even today, how do you go about finding songs?
Well, that probably is another thing. I've worked with some great record producers. It just so happened, that my first couple of songs, first 3 million sellers I had, I kind of did myself, just with my band. I did, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and Mama, and we had a thing called Billy and Sue from way back. But a friend of mine, Mark James, a songwriter, moved to Memphis and started writing songs. And I was having a hard time selling records at that time. I went all of '67, didn't sell any records, and so I went up to Memphis and did a session. And Chips Moman, asked me. He said, if you'd move here and spend some time here, he said, we'll find you some hit records. And I think that's, if you work with a great producer, they know a hit. And these guys find songs, get all writers to send them songs, and they'll play them, and they can pick a hit out of 100 songs. Well, I might pick a song more on a personal level and something that touches me personally, and I might be misled by my feelings, but that probably is the reason I had so many hits as I recorded with so many great producers, and a lot of the producers were songwriters themselves. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Because today it seems like, and I don't know if you've run into this, the whole Nashville scene that's going because of the Garth Brooks and the Rebas and all that. I imagine every songwriter out there wants their song to be recorded. They're holding out for Garth to grab it or whatever. Does that make it hard to find material, or the A-list songs?
Well, yeah, it does. A lot of times they do hold songs back. I have a good, I get a good reaction if I contact the songwriter personally and tell him what I'm doing and ask him to send me a song. Then a lot of times I'll get his A song. That was funny. Now Chips could tell if Chips Moman was looking for songs and a songwriter came by the studio and played him a few songs, he knew instantly if the guy was holding back, and he'd say, "Well, look, man, if you're just going to play me all these B-sides, you can just go. If you play me the song you're holding back," and he always knew, and the guy would play him his best song. I cut Old Fashioned Love and New Looks for an Old Lover and Two Car Garage with a producer in Nashville called Pete Drake. He was a legendary old steel guitar player, and he would have a songwriters party at his house, and he would get one of his best friends, who was really a good writer, to play his best songs first, and then the writers couldn't hold back. They would have to come with something really good to follow what he did, and that's how we found those 3 songs. So.
Were they all the same writer or all different?
No, they were all different writers.
Because New Looks is one of my favorite songs.
Well, New Looks, by the way, was my wife's idea. Gloria wrote it with Red Lane and Lathan Hudson, but she had the idea and came up with most of the lyrics of that. So.
Oh, it's got a really cool beat, and that upbeat.
Yeah,
Dun,
yeah.
dun, dun.
Mm.
I always like that.
We should have done that the other night.
I was wishing, and then you asked the crowd, and then you said, you want that or an Old Car Garage? And someone yelled out some other songs. Okay, we'll do that one.
You know, I got distracted. I should have. Yeah, I should have done that.
I wasn't mad, but I was disappointed.
Sure.
We still good on tape?
Yeah, we're getting
Where
to
at?
25 minutes.
Okay,
we
we're
got
good.
5 minutes.
Sorry to go off on little tangents, but this
That's okay.
makes it better. During your that back-to-back hit-making period that as I remember was like, started with Raindrops and then boom, 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 like through the early 70s all the way to 75-ish. What was life like being a singer then and being super successful?
Well, really, I did. You know, the run of hits I had was really good. I had my first hit in '66, and I ran from '66 through '75, where I didn't miss very often. It was, for a guy. I came from a very humble situation. Where our family, we weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. I was a very quiet kid. I didn't talk very much. I wouldn't say anything, and somehow, when I was about 13 or 14, years after my dad had taken us to see the Grand Ole Opry, I got to where I would sing a little bit, like to my dad, and I went to church a lot in those days. I didn't have I'd go to church to have family, and I ended up singing a lot in church. But as far as getting up in front of anyone and performing, that would be the last thing I would do. So for me to end up, I got in this band, and it wasn't a show band sort of thing. We played for dances. People danced. They didn't pay a lot of attention to us. We just did the songs, and so and the next thing I know, I recorded "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," and it became a big record. And then I was up in front of people, and it was a real disconcerting to me, because I was a very insecure kind of guy at that time. So during the first half of that run, I had to kind of learn how to be an entertainer, which I had never even thought about, and really had never let myself even think I would have a hit record. So it was rough for me, and I had I had my problems with alcohol and certain things even before I got into music. So that the pressure kind of amplified some of that during that run. And I'm thankful that by '76 I got sober, I got straight, and I was able to survive that period of time.
Mm. I remember, I think I told you the other night, I saw you like about 7 or 8 times one stretch. I think it was like '73, somewhere around there. You came to our local fair.
Uh-huh.
But I never forget the way that you held the mic. And you don't do it anymore today, but you held it upside down and like leaned it against your lip.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. I don't even know if you remember that.
Mm-mm.
But it looked so strange. You had it upside down, the cord would go like this, and you held
Really?
it. Yeah.
Gosh.
You don't remember that?
I don't. I don't.
Odd. I always wondered if there was a reason or something.
I've always just kind of barely held on to the mic up in my fingers. I never, if I held on to it like that when I first started, my hand would shake, So I learned how to hold it real lightly in my fingers. So that's the way I've always had. So I don't remember that, but maybe it was just one song I did, or I was screaming or something.
No.
I don't know.
It literally was rested
Really?
on your cheek.
Oh my goodness! I
don't know.
Man, I must have been warped.
Should we change tape real fast?
Yeah, we're around the 28 something minute. Yeah, we're at 29. Ready and
Yeah,
fire.
get you sweating.
Okay, where do we leave off here?
Make sure
Framing
you like
good?
Framing, I think it is.
Yeah, the panel left. Just give him a little talk space toward me.
One more?
Yeah, that's good right there. Okay, in continuation of that, you had that string of hits and you were very successful. What is it like being famous?
Well, it's. I thought when I first started singing, before I had any hit records, that all I needed to do to be happy was to be famous. Once I get famous, man, everything, I got it made. But it's not that way. It's to be famous is just another thing you have to deal with. It's obviously a positive. I mean, it's something that I've grown. Not that I'm a not that I get bothered or everybody recognizing me everywhere I go, but it's been a positive in my life. It's something I would really miss if I didn't have it. If I didn't have it now, but it's something you have to deal with and kind of work out in your mind for what it is. It has really nothing to do with who you are on the inside, and except for what I put into my music. I mean, I put a lot of my personal self and my personal feelings into my music. So there is a part of my fame that is me, but you have to deal with it, because a lot of it has nothing to do with who you really are. And once I got comfortable with it was when I realized that the most important thing to me was that I was a man who loved his wife, and a father who cherished his kids. And once I got that straight, then the fame was something I can handle. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't overload me. It's not the biggest part of who I want to be or what I want to be, how I want to be thought of. But for years, it will divert your attention and get you in an ego sense. So it's just something you have to deal with, and it takes some maturity, and it takes some self-worth to finally see it, for what it is.
I'll bet. I can imagine.
It can really distract you.
I'm
You
sure
think,
it can ruin people.
yeah, oh yeah, it's especially in this business. So many of entertainers, they have one hit and they think, they're Elvis or something. Well, you get that when you get famous and people start seeing you and recognizing you, and it's just it's something you have to deal with, because in most cases, it has nothing to do with. People love who they think you are. If they really knew you, maybe they wouldn't think so much of you. So you have to concentrate on being worthwhile as who you are, aside from your fame. So it's a challenge.
Great answer. Let's talk about gospel music a little bit.
Okay.
You love to do gospel music. I mean, in your act, you do 2 or 3 songs, and really well done. Amazing Grace is extremely well done.
Oh, thanks.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into gospel music?
Well, the gospel music was the first music I ever did. I mean, as I think I told you, when I first started singing, it was in church. And when I was a kid, Mahalia Jackson was on TV every day, right after school. I remember coming home from school, and Mahalia Jackson would sing for 5 minutes. She would do one hymn every day, and she was my first memory of anybody that sang. And then of course there was Hank Williams, and Hank Williams did lots of spiritual and gospel things, and as I grew older, so did Elvis. So I guess my real true love of music is all centered and has roots in gospel music. I love to sing it. There's just something about it. You mentioned Amazing Grace. There's something about that. Some of the great old classic gospel songs that just ring that bell that's inside you and just really move you from inside, and that's why I love to sing it.
The Mighty Clouds of Joy, that was done well before you really got into. That was still in your real pop phase, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. That was in '73, I believe, and I did that down in Atlanta, Georgia, Doraville, Georgia, with the Atlanta Rhythm Section. Their drummer and producer, Buddy Bowie and Robert Nix, wrote that song. They heard a record on the radio by the group, the Mighty Clouds of Joy, the gospel group, and it just gave them an idea to write a song with that title. And back in those days, I thought I was just as much a gospel singer as anything. Even before I had the well publicized spiritual awakening and all that. So I've always had a real love for that kind of music.
Now, I'm not familiar with. There was one album I was reading about. Is that the album with Amazing Grace that sold a bunch and you got awards for it and things?
Well, I did 5 gospel albums with Word Records in Texas, and each one of the albums won a Grammy. So I was just very fortunate and was received very well by the public with that music. The first album was called Home Where I Belong, and it went. We talked about this. It went from nothing to number 1. It was number 1 for about 75 weeks. And then the next album came out, and it went from nothing to number 1 and was number 1 for whatever. But the 4th album was a thing called Amazing Grace, and it went from nothing to number 1. It was a number 1 for 102 consecutive weeks. And it just like if I get prideful, or if my ego gets me, it always gets connected with that music. I am so proud. And and feel so good about the way the public accepted me in that particular marketplace. But if I look back on my accomplishments, you know, I hardly ever think of any of my songs, even Raindrops. I always remember, you know, I'm so proud of what I did in gospel. So this is probably my proudest achievement is what those songs did.
And presently, you have a new album on Warner Brothers that is gospel music.
I've got a new gospel album out with Warner Brothers. It's you know, that's the first gospel music I've made in really almost 12 years. This is actually the second album of traditional gospel music, and we're just kind of extending our hand back to the people in the gospel marketplace. We're kind of just reintroducing ourselves back to them, and I plan on making a number of gospel albums for over a long and consistent period of time. So the traditional albums is just, we're kind of just saying hello, we're back again. But the new album is called I Believe, and of course it has I Believe on it, and a lot of the great old gospel songs.
Great. And is there another album coming on that's separate on Warner this year?
I'm going in the studio, as a matter of fact, in just a few days to start recording, I guess you would call it a gospel or contemporary Christian Christmas record, that will probably be in one of the Warner Brothers movie releases for the fall of '97. But I'm going to probably have that album done by March, and I'm starting just in a few days. We've got some great, unbelievably good songs to do. I can't wait to do them. They're real contemporary and kind of pop feeling songs, the kind of songs I really like to do, so I'm looking forward to it.
Is there any standards that we'd recognize?
No, they're all original songs. I think that a number of them have been recorded here and there over, say, maybe the last 5 years by people in the contemporary Christian music field, but I don't think any of the songs are really widely known, and there are no real chestnuts or no standards in there. These are all new and original songs.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the Crazy Horse as a venue. It seems like it has a rich history, and the owner, you know, seems to know everybody, and he's Garth Brooks' best friend or something like that. Tell me about that place.
Yeah, the Crazy Horse is a great venue. It's a great place to work. Fred Reiser, the guy that runs it, is the best guy we have to work. We always look forward to going there because he is the easiest guy to work with. The staff at the Crazy Horse is the best crew we ever work with. There's something about the fact that it's not a huge place. The people kind of feel like they're just right up with you. There's a real intimate feeling in the Crazy Horse. That makes it a real pleasure to work. I mean, I was on stage over 3 hours, and I'm only contracted to do 2 hours, but somehow you always end up doing an hour 45 or an hour 50 minutes because you just get carried away with what's going on. But it's a great place, and as you probably know, it's been the number one country nightclub maybe 6 or 8 times. And it's hard to define exactly why it's such a magical place, but it's just a great place to do music live.
Great. Also, your publicist wanted me to ask you about the Precious Memories album. And I guess it has a lot of success on the Christian country charts.
Yeah, Precious Memories was the album previous to I Believe, and it was just traditional hymns too. Both of these albums, though, have Precious Memories had Home Where I Belong on it, which was one of my contemporary Christian hits from the late 70s, early 80s. And also I Believe has Happy Man on it. I believe I did that in the show the other night, Happy Man and You Gave Me Love. So Precious Memories was quite successful, and we hope that I Believe will just kind of build on that, and we can kind of, what I really want to do is a contemporary Christian album like the Home Where I Belong and the Amazing Grace albums that I won my Grammys for. I want to get back in and do one of those albums, so we're building toward that.
Great. And I noticed this show the other night. It's almost like you must have shook everybody's hand in that place. And it seems like you have a fan base, and like I said, I've been to your couple of summer shows, and you've got this fan base that is. What are B.J. Thomas fans like?
It's amazing to me. I have to admit, I'm always shocked at how often I see the same people, and what a base of loyal base I have with the fans. I'm always surprised at that. Maybe I shouldn't be, but Gosh, a B.J. Thomas fan is somebody that likes positive music. Um, that's one thing I've always done in my career. Lots of guys like to sing songs like, "Baby, I'm leaving you because I found a new woman," and that's a positive thing to them. But that to me, I've tried to stay away, and not that I've done it completely. I mean, I'm sure I've recorded a negative song somewhere along the line, but I try to do positive music, and I think that's where my fan base lies. Is people that even when I was at the height of my powers in the pop music, lots of kids would come and see me, and lots of grandmothers and granddads would come and bring their kids and their grandchildren and things. So it's I think people that like positive music, those people are B.J. Thomas fans.
Perfect. And while you're touring, like what we caught you on today, what other stuff do you get to do while you're on tour that it might be fun or interesting that has nothing to do with music?
Well, when I'm touring, if I'm looking for something to do other than just we do a lot of, you spend when you're touring, you spend a lot of time just by yourself sitting around watching TV waiting to do your job that night. But if we do anything, it's play golf. My road manager Gary Doon is he's about a 5 handicap. I'm about an 8 handicap, so we love to go play and have these death grip matches where we play to the nth, so we do that a lot. And in our travels around the country, we get to see lots of great courses in Pebble Beach, and we get to Florida and around all these great areas where they have the great courses. So that's what we do. If we're looking for any kind of extracurricular activity, we go on the golf course.
Any gambling go on there?
Well, yes, we do. If you're not gambling on the golf course, you're just walking around with a bunch of guys. So.
True, it's that or drink beer. Or
so that's what makes it fun. Is we don't play for a lot of money, but that's what makes it fun. Is getting that dollar off each other.
Oh yeah, and I noticed in your band members as you introduced them that night, the minimum guy's been there like 19 years with you.
Well, 2 of them have been with me over 20 years, and the other one guy 16 and one guy 15. So
could you start that out and say in a full sentence? Like members of my band,
yeah.
And I just wonder why that is, or how. It's got to be kind of rare that you keep the same band all these years.
Yeah, the members of my band have been with me for just many years. 2 of them have been with me over 20 years. The band leader and the bass player, and the drummer's been with me 16. And my guitar player has been with me 15 years, and it is a real unusual that you would have a band that stay with you that long. One of the practices in this business is, as soon as you get a band up to a certain pay base, you let them go and start all over again at a lower. And we've just never done that. We've always, my band and I have felt a lot of. I love these guys. I mean, sometimes there are people that are closer than. Your own brothers. You spend more time with them, so there's a lot of loyalty and a lot of true love there between me and these guys, and I hope we stay together forever.
Great. Just another question I thought of was: is there anybody today that you can kind of hear, maybe that they were influenced by you, or have you ever heard of any today's singer? Some guy in a grunge band or something. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Well. Of the artists today that I might recognize that I've influenced, I'm not sure I could come up with one offhand. I know that when Prince first came out, he mentioned me in a book that was about him when he first came out, that he had heard me and liked me, and it may be one of the reasons why, of all people, Prince does do some spiritual music sometimes, just out and out, straight ahead, gospel sounding. And with a gospel message too, so he's about the only one I could think of. But hopefully there are a number of artists out there that I've influenced, and that's really the, aside from taking care of my family with the financial part of this business, that's about the only thing I'm going to leave behind is how in somebody else's mind they think about me, and then and the music I leave. So hopefully I've influenced a few people.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I'd like to be remembered as a guy that sang that had a lot of soul and had a lot of feeling in his music. I don't by any, I've never at any time thought I was ever a great singer. If you want to hear a great singer, you've got Caruso and Pavarotti and these guys. Now there's some guys that can really hit the notes, and they're great singers. That's never been the important thing to me. In my music, it's just the fact that how high I could hit a note or how good I could hit a note. I've always been more interested in how much feeling I could put into it and how I could make you feel when you heard my music. So I'd like to be remembered for a guy that sang with a lot of soul.
Great. And just one last question, if there's anything you'd like to add, what's in the future for you?
Well, the future still holds a lot of promise for me, and a lot of things that I haven't done. I possibly in the future, we'll do a theater. That's something I'd like to do, and help other artists, let other artists work my theater, and help other people do what they'd like to do in this business. I'm like Arnold Palmer or any golfer. I've won a lot of tournaments, but I want to win one more. I'd love to have one more big #1 pop record, or #1 gospel record, or #1 country record. So that the future always holds the promise that I'll be able to do that. And so that's what keeps me going. Aside from the live performances, is the hope that I can always be competitive with the new people and that kind of thing. But I guess. The music has been a big part of my life, but it's not the biggest part of who I am. So I at my age now, when I look forward to what the future is going to bring, I know I'm going to have some great years with my wife Gloria. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to watching my children get married and have grandchildren for me. And so there are lots of things. There are lots of things in my life that hold my attention right now.
Great. Oh, one question I asked Mark Lindsay, which had a funny answer, was what is the most unusual or interesting pairing over your career? Like someone opened up for you, like he said the Rolling Stones one time.
You're not going to believe this, okay? The most unusual pairing that I had, I worked at the Mid-South State Fair down in Mississippi one time, and Arnold, the pig off of Green Acres, came on before me and sang, or oinked, sitting on the dock of the bay. Now, I know you're going to probably want to verify this. You think I'm lying, but that's the most unusual thing. I can still remember it just as crystal clear as if it happened yesterday. The guy would kind of hold him back here and squeeze him, and and the band played sitting on the dock of the bay. And anyway, that's the most unusual thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, at least you weren't opening up for him.
yeah. At least I didn't have to open up for him. That's right. I may have to one day.
And then just one last thing. Right now, I'm going to put you on for sure on America West Airlines and an airline called
Great.
American Transair.
Right.
And would you mind just saying like a drop or whatever? Basically, I have some people say, "Hi, and you look right in the lens.
Okay.
Hi, I'm BJ Thomas here flying with you. Thanks for coming along."
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
America West Airlines, or just thanks for
Okay.
flying with me on America West. That'd be great.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for flying with me on American West. I hope you enjoy my music and enjoy my show, and have a good flight.
It's actually America West.
America West, okay.
Don't get nasty about that. And say hi, I'm BJ Thomas.
Okay. Hi, I'm BJ Thomas. Thanks for flying with me on America West. Hope you have a great flight, and hope you enjoy my music.
And then same thing with American Transair.
Hi, I'm BJ Thomas on American Transair. Thanks for flying with me. Hope you enjoy my show and enjoy my music. Have a good flight. Yeah, I can do that better maybe, huh? American Transair.
Yeah.
Hi, this is BJ Thomas on American Transair. Thanks for flying with me today, and I hope you enjoy my music.
Good. Now, can you do a personal one for me?
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind?
No, not at all.
I do a Christmas video every year, right?
Okay.
For my friends back in Michigan.
Uh-huh.
St. Joseph, Michigan. I think you played there. There's a
Oh, I'm
Venetian
sure.
festival outside
sure.
that you played at.
Yeah.
But if you could just say, "Hi, everybody, I'm BJ Thomas, along with Tim here, and Merry Christmas, St. Joe, Michigan." Something
Okay.
like that.
Hi, everybody. This is BJ Thomas, and I'm with Tim here, and I want to wish everybody in St. Joseph Merry Christmas.
Thanks very much. I got Alan Thicke doing one of those for me.
Yeah,
A couple
yeah.
other people. People back home, like my old high school friends, always freak out.
So